Hi there. So in today's episode, we are talking with the lovely Jo Grace about nervous system regulation. It's become really clear to me over the time that I've been working with people's minds that the mind has a huge influence on the body, and vice versa. We can really use our bodies and our systems to help calm our mind. And there are various tools and techniques that I've found really help clients to just get in their calm zone and start to calm down their fight or flight system. And today Jo is going to share with us loads more from her point of view as somebody who works all the time on the physiological level, helping people regulate their emotions, traumas and experience basically through the body. So I think you're going to really enjoy this. Grab yourself a nice cup of tea or a glass of water or wine or whatever it might be, and settle in for half an hour or so of listening to us chatting all about bodies and brains and how we can harness the relationship between the two to help us in our businesses and our daily lives and to live life to the fullest. Enjoy.
So I've got the lovely Jo Grace with me today, and she's going to talk to us about basically our physiology and how we can make that work better with our mind. So fire away, Jo. Just tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got here. And I think you'll explain it far more articulately than me, so I shall let you do that.
Well, that's because it's about me, so I can talk about me phrases. Hi, I love that. Yes, I'm with the physiology and how it connects to our minds, which is essentially the passion that I'm really working with at the moment. My background is a trauma psychotherapist and focusing on the mind a lot, and I became fascinated by actually what was underpinning a lot of the stories and the events and the experiences people were having. And when I learned about the nervous system, and particularly something called the polyvagal theory, which many might have heard of now, certainly the vagus nerve stuff seems to be out and about everywhere. It was like a huge missing piece for me of understanding that actually we are our biology fundamentally, and the biology influences then what our brains, our stories that we come up with, the experiences we have. So it was a big step for me in terms of supporting clients in a different way, coming more into their bodies, coming more into actually understanding what was going on in their autonomic nervous system, understanding how they could actually then affect change that wasn't necessarily all about just talking about what would happen to them. And I really think there's a place for that talking. I know you're a therapist too, and there's definitely a place for people to share the story, the events that happen to them. But there can be a place where that can get really stuck and actually re-traumatizing. So of course, I want to support people to come into their true self in the least chaotic, traumatizing way possible. And this awareness around how the body works, and particularly our autonomic nervous system, feels a really beautiful way that people can connect with, as well as the story.
Yeah, I love that, because I think I put up a post on Facebook, maybe it was even yesterday, just talking about how when we're constantly thinking about our thinking and constantly trying to analyze what we're thinking and why we're thinking certain things, as you say, it can totally re-traumatize us, and it can get us stuck in this kind of place where we're just never switching off from it at all. And so approaching it in a different way is wonderful. And like a lot of the work I do with clients is not thinking about what's happened to them, but moving forward from that. And it's so nice to have an approach that's just like switch it off altogether, forget about the thoughts and influence them from the ground up, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. In mindset work, the work that you specifically do is it's like the magic tool that we have as humans, isn't it? This ability to move into this prefrontal cortex that's so huge for us. So like, in humans, it's a third of our brain is the prefrontal cortex, whereas like cats have 3%, in there. So when we about it in that context, we've got this capacity to imagine anything and to be, and I think just have to take a moment to think of I'm looking out the window and there's like electricity and telephones and buildings and like cars and vehicles. It's like humans came up with all that. That's this amazing capacity we have, and it keeps us stuck in the whirling thoughts and the rabbit hole, wormholes and all that kind of thing. And so for me, underpinning mindset work with actually listening to the body too, because thinking mindset is all up here, it's all above the neck, isn't it? And actually we are this body that we're moving around. Because all of our senses apart from touch are in our head, sight, sound, taste, smell, everything is in the head. So it feels like we are head.
Yeah.
And we're mainly in our body, but actually we're right down in our toes. We're right here in our fingertips.
Yeah.
Most of the time we've been trained and conditioned in our culture, particularly, not to know that. We've been trained to be too brain centric.
Yeah, right. And medicine for many years now has been very much about kind of separating mind from body, hasn't it? And it's been like, we'll treat the symptoms, will cause what's going on physically, but without really thinking about the mind and without thinking about the physiology and what's going on neurally. And I love that that's all coming together now, and we're really starting to understand, well, many of us have understood that for a long time, but that medicine's really embracing that integrative approach as well, and that's fantastic to see.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, getting there with it. Getting there. Cats are probably never going to rule the world if they only have 3% prefrontal cortex.
Quite reassuring.
I love that fact.
I feel like my cats rule my world. They just like dominate everything in my world. It's like everything we do is like based on my cat routine. My cat's routine.
Yeah, they use that 3% really well, don't they? I was under the cat thumb.
Definitely.
So what's led you to working with the people that you work with now, in particular?
Sorry, I didn't know in the beginning. What drew me? To working with the
what's led you to working with your specific clients that you tend to work with nowadays?
Yeah, so I've got quite a mix of clients really. So I originally was working, well, I've always worked with people in some way or the other, and then I trained as a play therapist about 15 years ago, and I was actually working with children in care, so they were incredibly traumatized children, and in that, but then I had my own children and couldn't do that work and hold that as well, and then moved towards working with adults. I was working with vulnerable adults for a long time. And my first client load really was still very much in that in the sphere of people whose mental health is really quite severe, that's really debilitating, who are not able to work, who are not able to have healthy relationships. And then as I've progressed through that, I now am doing a mix. I still have a couple of clients in that zone, but I'm now particularly working with people like yourself. So I see myself as a foundational person. I'm somebody that holds and supports people that are out there, doing brave and adventurous work. I'm working with a couple of high-end sort of coaches who hold containers where they're training other coaches and therapists, and I support them around nervous system health and awareness for those coaches to then take out to their clients. And so increasingly I'm in this zone of like, how can I have the biggest impact with my particular skill set and my particular knowledge and my particular passion? How can I make that work to a greater degree, which I'm sure many of us feel that. So I do a little bit of one-to-one still. I do quite a lot of couples work, which I love doing couples work, but more and more doing my own programs. So I'm about to start a new program actually, around a month-long program called Accompaniment, which is around supporting people, being alongside people, because that's what we need as a human being, is that witnessing and empathy, and then working to support other people to be fully embodied in who they are, in their own brilliance and genius, and support them with what's going on in your body. So it's a real mix. And I've just also done written and recorded a program for the NHS, which is around trauma.
Very fantastic.
Yeah, so that will be rolling out in I think it's in 3 trusts in the NHS, aimed at younger people, but really giving them this understanding of trauma from the perspective of the body and actually what's going on in their nervous system. So that feels like a really exciting doorway that's opened. Is like, can we infiltrate? Get in that more holistic view in the NHS? So I've got a real range of different sort of works going on, because it's obviously applicable to everybody, because we're all bodies.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. I love that, because so often we're told, and we feel like with business we have to kind of really limit it and channel it down to one very, very niche thing and just only focus on one ideal client and all of that stuff. And it's something I found in my own business that I love to embrace lots of things and have that multi-passionate approach. So I love that that's working really well for you, and clearly super passionate about it as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely adore it. And I think this is the thing, isn't it, around finding, if you can find the thing that really lights you up, that you're passionate about, just do that thing, whatever that is, because that's how we're going to, that's regulation as well. So my work is around nervous system regulation. So when I'm talking about that, that's the autonomic nervous system, which is responsible, it's our command center. It's responsible for all of the autonomic processes like breathing, digestion, heart rate, blood pressure, healing, all those kind of, and also the survival responses, so the fight, flight, freeze responses. And that nervous system is looking the whole time for safety and connection. So this being here is looking for safety and connection with another being. And that when we're in safety and connection and we're able to do the things that light us up, that make us feel great and make us feel good, then we're in regulation. And sadly, so few of us are in this culture. You know, a mixture of 10,000 years of humans being on the land, creating societies, coming up with lots of different weird rules that are very repressive, suppressive, abusive, lots of wars, lots of different crises, lots of different ways of parenting that don't necessarily meet the needs of a young nervous system. The result of that, and then this high speed culture that we're currently in, coming out of a pandemic, all these different factors that we've got going on as a human being at this moment in time, it can feel really difficult to get into a state where we feel good enough to be able to do the things that we're passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we're not doing things that we're passionate about and we're trying to force ourselves down a wrong pathway, as you say, that just kind of closes us down and sends us into that fight or flight place, and then we can't show up as with that energy, with that vitality, and with the motivation and the focus that we need to get out there and sell our thing or share our thing or make it work, basically. So it's kind of putting the lid on being able to do what you want, isn't it? So important to really kind of tune into what aligns with you and what you are super passionate about, so that you can get out there and do it. And that's why it tends to follow, isn't it? When you do tune into that passion, it all starts to fall into place.
Absolutely. And you know, whatever you're passionate about, it might be, you know, you might be passionate about people and love working in a cafe. You know, when you go into like places, shops and cafes where there's somebody who's just so lit up, and the fact that they're serving you, you know, that's as important as somebody that's earning like £1 million and doing some business, and perhaps is probably super stressed and about to have a heart attack as well. It's about, and I'm not saying, you know, at all, everybody has a right to earn money and have money, and there's abundance everywhere, and we all should have it. But it's also about, well, what is really going to give you that sense of connection to yourself and wellness? Because what goes on is, if we're operating in dysregulated states for long periods of time, which many of us are, we're phenomenally able to put up with holding stress in our body, and mainly because we think our way out of it. You know, we override our body and we keep going. You know, we can go all day without drinking or eating or going to the loo, or, you know, looking after our temperature, or resting. You know, huge amounts of issues around rest. Because we're phenomenally good at ignoring the fact that we're under pressure we're out of regulation in our nervous system, over time that has wear and tear on the body, and so it turns up then in physical ailments. So, you know, dysregulated nervous system, if you've been in the fight and flight zone a lot, so that's the sort of like annoyance, anxiety, panic, fear, worry, irritation, frustration, annoyance, criticism, those kind of feelings, that kind of swirling around. If you're in that kind of like, oh my God, I've got to get it done, and it's all like really stressful, being in that zone, obviously, for years and years and years, it's no surprise that heart disease, you know, strokes, migraines, backache, you know, those sort of physical ailments are as a result of the dysregulated nervous system. That's exactly what it is. These diseases didn't exist in tribal times. And if you've got issues with digestion or fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, ME, those in autoimmune systems, that's a sign that you've been in some form of freeze in your nervous system, because your body hasn't been able to do the digesting and healing that it's meant to do. So all of these physical ailments we see diabetes as well, actually. All these physical ailments that we see appearing in our modern times are massively to do with the fact that we're dysregulated. And as a way of coping with dysregulation, we then soothe ourselves through food and drink and stimulants and screen and shopping and all those kind of things, which is also part of the culture. So, I mean, I'm not at all a hair shirt and saying, you know, don't have a drink and don't enjoy your food and don't enjoy Netflix and all those kind of things. Absolutely, it's one of the joys of being a modern human, isn't it? Having access to all those different things, but understanding when you're using those things for enjoyment and when you're using them to soothe and to distract and to keep yourself sedated, medicated, there's a difference in those two ways. And my work really is about supporting people to realize.
Yeah, that's totally the key, isn't it? Is this, am I doing this because this really feels joyful, or is this just like it's giving me that dopamine hit, it's making me feel good in this present moment and switching off all the other stuff that I need to be dealing with? And like, speaking from my experience in my previous role in my previous business, I was totally in that place of just like constantly being on the go, constantly fighting fires, managing all the things, juggling all the things, trying to live this massively fulfilling life as well at the time, because I had this like, life is short, I need to make the most of it narrative in my head. So I was jamming my leisure time with stuff that was great fun, but I was never stopping. And yeah, it was kind of the case that I was totally not noticing it was going on. I wasn't aware there was any anxiety there because I was coping, I was fine, you know. But what was happening was regularly I was getting these kind of weird viral things going on, like my throat, my head, and itchy eyes, and I just feeling quite exhausted and drained, and the GP couldn't find anything going on, and this kept showing up quite regularly. And now looking back on it, I realized that was fatigue. It was my nervous system going, help, stop, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. The body will tell us. And what the interesting relationship many of us have with our body as well is like those sort of phrases like, we see ourselves as separate from our body. So like, my body's really letting me down, or my body's hurting me, or my body's, you know, not big, you know, not feeling enough, not big, whatever. You know, we really have learned in our culture to separate ourselves out from our body, because that's the only way we can cope with not, you know, the fact that there's so much going on that we're not listening to, you know. And what you described there is that perfect description of the modern burnout. Literally, it's the system burning out, isn't it? And what I hear there in your own story, and it's a really familiar one, and I have it too in my past, is that lack of rest. So fundamentally in the nervous system, there's two zones. There's two systems in the nervous system. There's what's called the sympathetic, which is like our accelerator, our go, our action and purpose. It's the part that energizes it, and it's mainly in the torso. This is kind of the sympathetic system sits mainly in the torso, going a little bit into the throat and the mouth. And then we have the parasympathetic, which is the brake. And that's the slow down, and that's where we need to rest, and that's where we heal and we digest. And our modern world encourages us to be mainly in the sympathetic, which is actually where we are most of the time in the daytime. We're supposed to do these cycles. We're naturally designed to do these cycles of about 90 minutes in the daytime, with a sort of 75 minutes of active sympathetic, and then a 15-minute rest in the parasympathetic. And most of us at the top of that 75 minutes take in some caffeine or sugar or screen. And then so we keep ourselves, you know, it's just like, keep going, what am I going to do next? Keep going. And so we just, and over time, that literally, I mean, I can feel the energy of it now. It's that kind of frenetic burn. And it's as simple as, you know, bringing into your day, how can you just bring in 5-10 minutes of rest every day? And that doesn't mean going to bed.
No.
That's having a break from the screen. That's going for a walk. That's looking out the window at some birds in the trees. That's having a chat with somebody, you know, pausing for a drink and away from the busy. And we haven't been trained to do that, because if you think about how schools are set up and how workplaces are set up, we're not trained to take breaks.
No, it's just I'll do that quick thing now. I'll get that thing.
When I'm eating my sandwich, I'll also like be, you know, on the phone here and doing an email and whatever.
There's just, like you say, that constant drip feed of stuff, isn't there? And even often it feels quite positive, and we feel like we're being really proactive, and we're like being connected and responding to all the things, and we're living a good life, but we're just not switching off from thinking, which is the key thing, isn't it? It's just that time out to let your brain freewheel and just get into that meditative state.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the thing, that our thinking is connected to our body's state. So if our body's in this frenetic, the thinking thoughts will be running a million miles a minute, and then we'll look for things. We're feeling unsafe and stressed in our body, so our brain will go, oh, what's going on? Okay, we'll look for a problem. Oh, I've got this going on, when actually a lot of the time those things aren't really that much of a threat.
No.
We get caught in them because our brain is trying to make sense of our body being under threat.
Yeah. And did you say we did a little live session as part of a coaching program that I'm currently in earlier, didn't we? And did you say 94% of ailments and physical conditions are basically down to being in stress all the time?
Yeah. It's astonishing. It was I heard it in a podcast, and it's from an American Medical Society report, and it's come out recently that they're saying 94% of all illnesses, physical and mental, are being in what they're calling the hypersympathetic state. So sympathetic is that zone of doing, and it's also the zone of fight and flight, and it's essentially not coming out of that state. And I mean, I would argue that there's also dropping down into the freeze hyposympathetic, which is like down in the kind of overwhelm, exhaustion, numbness, etc. And people tend to move in and out of those two zones because it uses so much energy to be in the sympathetic state. And it just blows my mind when I think about that, but it makes so much sense. So much of our illnesses are modern illnesses. So where have they just come from? I mean, yes, we have toxins, and yes, we have pollutions, and yes, we don't eat, and we overeat, and we undereat, and all those different things. But nevertheless, this is to do with systems that are dysregulated, and that don't feel safe, and that are operating at this high level. So the more I've allowed that to come in, it's just like, wow, if people just were empowered about understanding what's going on in their body and understand the physiology, they could then start with support, because it's not easy to change these are patterns that are deeply ingrained. These are patterns that have given us a sense of stability as well. So it's not just a case of like, now I know about it. If that was the case, I still have to work on a daily basis with my body.
Having that awareness.
Having that awareness, because my patterning, my learned sort of regulation patterns, which aren't healthy, will always take me down that route because it's really quick. The brain likes safety and efficiency. It doesn't really care about your quality of life. The brain just wants to get you to the end of the day alive in the quickest way possible. And if there's been a way that you've done for years and years and years, and you're still living at the end of it, and maybe reproducing other little Abbies and Joes, then and that's it, job done. And it's only this kind of part of this soul part, this sense of like, hey, there's something more to life than this, that brings this kind of can't live like this anymore.
And our brains hate change as well, don't they? So to override those long-term habits, even if we can see that there's a positive outcome on the other side of it, that's why people go on smoking for years. That's why people stay in really bad habits that they know are terrible for them, but we're so attached to those things that feel comfortable and safe, and we just don't want to go to the place where it feels different.
It's really helpful for when I work with clients to understand this word stabilization. So our nervous system, our bodies are looking to be stable as much as possible, because that means survival. And so we learn really early on how to do that. And so we adapt to the environment. So when we're little, we can't regulate our emotions and bodies fully until we're 6. And we only can do that effectively if we've received good enough regulation and care. So when we're born, our brain, our prefrontal cortex, completely offline. It's ready to be, formed. And our bodies, we can just about do breathing okay, but we can't digest properly yet. We can't control our bladders and bowels. We certainly can't regulate our emotions, can't regulate temperature and stuff. And we learn that through how we're interacted with a caregiver. And so the body the whole time is looking to, how do I become stable? So we use the caregiver to create that stabilization initially. So however we're treated, whatever messages we receive in that environment, whatever goes on for us in that environment, it basically sets up our body up to stabilize in that way in the future. And what often then goes on for us, habits, bad habits, are part of our stabilization. It's part of how our body's gone. Oh, I can go into soothing and ease by having some sugar. I can find I can suppress this anxiety by smoking, and that helps my body feel stabilized. And then this leads us into this kind of horrible, weird, like dynamic where we're unconsciously looking for things that are going to take us towards pain, and just have the soothing on the other side of it, because we've coupled the soothing with the challenge, which is what we might have experienced when we were younger. And then we keep taking ourselves towards the same things and getting a bit more re-traumatized and, you know, consolidated and
giving ourselves a hard time for it.
And it's huge to go, this is our unconscious realm is 97% of the nervous system. And because it has to be unconscious, because we wouldn't be able to think about breathing and heart rate and digesting and healing and all those things. So it's this huge, I did this metaphor of like a massive steamer. So we're in this like huge, the unconscious part of the nervous system is this huge steamer, like chugging away, you know, like full steam ahead. And then we're in this tiny pedalo that's next to it in the conscious realm, trying to like move it off course. And we can't do it, you know. It's like, unless we start to go, oh, how can I actually slow? And it's a slow process if you've got very deep patterning as well. So, you know, in this analogy of a steamer, it's like, okay, well, how can I slowly start to change course? What practices can I bring in that can help me just slowly move the ship, you know, and then nudge it a little bit with the pedalo, you know, and then bring in things like mindset as well. So
and of course we all want that instant result, don't we? We want the overnight change, but you're so right to rewire those neural pathways and things that we've been doing for years and years. I always say it's like a 6-lane highway we've created in our brain to that unhelpful habit or behavior, and you've got cars and lorries and things steaming down there all the time, and it's a really well-worn path. And that new thing you're trying to do is tiny, fragile little nerve cell all on its own, and that's got no support. It's like the first time you walk through the grassy field, you know, compared to the steaming motorway. And to build that new pathway up to be as strong or stronger than the old one, and to start to neglect that old pathway enough to let that fade into the weeds, it takes time. So we have to kind of recognize that sometimes it will take several goes at this thing, and it's an ongoing process, and it's okay to fall off the wagon a bit and get back on it and just keep moving in that right direction. And that's, I think, a really valuable thing that we don't always consider when we're trying to change.
And this is where, so from a relational neuroscience point of view, this is where self-compassion is deeply important, and finding good people to accompany you. People like you and I, because what humans need, all mammals need, another regulated nervous system to help them regulate. That's what we're seeking the whole time. And humans, because we've got this huge prefrontal cortex, we need it more than other mammals. So what we're, like you and I, doing some lovely what's called co-regulation right now, because we're connected, we're smiling at one another, you know, I feel very at ease with you, so I feel really connected. So between us, we're sending messages, reciprocal messages to our right hemispheres of like, I'm safe, it's okay, and we're actually allowing each other to regulate, which is what we're designed to do. And so often in our culture, particularly if things happened to us when we were little and we didn't get a chance to be witnessed, or we didn't get a chance to speak, we've learned, you know, be strong, be on your own, be independent, you know, all these kind of messages that we've learned, depending on your gender and age, etc., etc. They don't encourage connection to other people when we're feeling sad, low, vulnerable. They don't encourage, because it's like, you know, you can't show weakness, you can't be vulnerable, you can't whatever. And actually what we really need, what we needed at the original time of when we were missed or scared or frightened, is we need, when anybody, and particularly little ones, are scared or frightened or angry or in grief, they need another system, another being to be empathic with them and go, I see you, I hear you, I get you. And that allows that particular reaction to move through the system and be released. The challenge all of us have is that we're carrying lots of stuck survival moments in our body. That's what trauma is. Trauma isn't the event, even if it was really distressing. Trauma is the stuck response to that wasn't supported with a kind, empathic witness, and physical releasing of the of the reaction. And so this finding a good therapist, a good coach, a good friend, a good partner that can hear you and see you and hold you through when things are really challenging is really vitally important for your nervous system. And then working to find self-compassion just isn't a nice thing to do. It is a lovely thing to do, to say I love myself. It actually activates the right hemisphere, and when we activate the right hemisphere, we can process. So instead of going, you idiot, you've done that stupid thing again, if we can find compassion for like, oh, wow, well, of course you've done that thing again because you've done it for 40 odd years. This isn't an easy path. So developing that, and that's a big part of the way I work with a lot of clients, is let's find that self-compassionate voice first, that nurturing parent, that cheerleader coach voice, because that's the part of your brain that you need to be activated. This isn't just an imaginary figure in your head. This is really going on in your brain. And when you're in that place, you can then move into healing. Because if we're in the critical, you idiot sort of zone, that's the left hemisphere, black, white. There's no choice. There's no options. So yeah, it's rich, deep work, and we need to do it together.
Yeah, totally. Oh, it's been so lovely to just like chat and have a good geek out about all this stuff. My pet subjects, I could talk about it all day.
Yeah, you need to shut me up now.
No, it's wonderful. So just to kind of wrap up, I guess, what's if you were to think back on your own business journey, and this is like something I ask everybody who comes on the podcast, what would you do differently if you could do it all again? Just a complete curveball there from what we've been talking about.
It's fascinating, really, isn't it? Because as I reflect back, everything's brought me to this moment, and this moment's perfect in that way. I think I would have probably, because I only started working with a business coach last year. So I'm 51, and I've been working in the therapeutic field for a long, long time, and I have a lot of skills and a lot of training and a lot of passion. And I've been very hampered by my own limiting beliefs around money, about who's allowed to earn money, who's allowed to run a business. I come from a background that's got lots of stories around what money means, and not good stories around what money means. And for years and years and years, I've been in this zone of like doing good by helping people, and there's been a money block for me around doing good means you can't earn money. And I now actually see, so this last year has been a huge, I've actually working with a business coach and understanding my own blocks are in that way and where they come from, and they're deeply ancestral. These have been passed down over generations and generations, so it's like really understandable. But this is the epigenetics, passed down trauma. So I would have loved to have done this work 20 years ago. that kind of like understanding of, oh my God, I'm not that belief. I can actually with more money, think of the impact.
Totally, yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Coexist.
Exactly, and that money can open my, obviously it will give me nice things and allow for my children and stuff like that. But fundamentally, if the more money I have, the more I can put that into like spreading the, instead of working with one-to-ones only and just making a living, I could be, I've got all sorts of plans about setting up a charity that would do low income therapy as well as, and that's good to say that out loud.
Wonderful.
So it's like I would have loved to have done more mindset work around the money beliefs. And I think that for most of us in this culture, we carry deep stories and trauma around money. What that means. And it gets in the way of us doing what we're passionate about. So a lot of us think that we can only do the things that we're passionate about in our spare time.
Absolutely.
And that could be the first thing that goes when we're stressed. So actually, if we can find a way to bring our passion into and get paid for it, yes, everybody wins.
It's the dream. It really is. And I think a lot of people are a bit nervous of even going there with money mindset work, because they're sort of seeing money as this like icky thing, like I really want to do my business but I don't even want to think about the money side of it, and doing money mindset work is going to turn me into this greedy monster. But it's totally not about that at all, is it?
No, there we have exactly. It's a really classic story, isn't it? This belief that, and that all comes down to, so just, I know we're wrapping up here, but if you can, anyone listening, remember we're designed to be in tribes.
Yeah.
All of our biology is designed to be in a tribe, and we take on the rules of our tribe, so the culture, because we need to understand those rules to keep safe. And so obviously when we were living as cave people, we needed, this very there were, our survival depended on it. We don't need to live like that anymore, so, but we still carry in our physiology the rules of our tribe. So getting to understand what the rules of your tribe are that no longer serve you is wonderful. And understanding why they're coupled to fear. So if you lived in a tribe where the rule was you need to tend the fire all night long because the animals will kill us otherwise, and you broke that, that's disaster, isn't it? So if your current modern tribe is money is evil and people that have money are evil or bad, then you don't want to go towards that, because that's going to feel like lack of survival in your system, isn't it? So
yeah,
very powerful work to do.
Yeah, you've just popped a lovely analogy into my head, actually, talking about tribes. It's like, I'll just freewheel on this for a moment, but thinking back to those tribal times, we're seeing money and possession of money is like, okay, I'm going to leave you all here and go and gather all the berries and then keep them for myself and just be really selfish with it. Whereas actually what you're saying and what's most people really want to do is go and gather all the berries and then share them with their tribe, isn't it? But we're saying to ourselves, I won't go and gather any berries at all, because then everybody will think I'm really mean and evil.
It's exactly lovely. I love this, because that was originated, wouldn't it? Having more than other people would have meant that the others would have died. That would have been the truth, and somehow we've projected, and people have done horrific things with money, let's face it. Without a doubt. But it's not money doing that.
No.
That's so it was lovely when I really worked with this idea that money is neutral. It's like energetic, and we project onto it our own beliefs. And until I brought consciousness into that, I had a whole load of beliefs around money, which stopped me earning it. And it's quite and sitting here, and I'm still learning this, and I'm still I'm earning well enough, but it would be wonderful to be bringing in more money for me for all the different reasons we talked about. And it's quite interesting going, oh well, I know how skilled I am, and all the years of training and all that kind of thing, and it doesn't compare with other people that are doing things similarly, who are out there earning millions or whatever. And that's all down to my self-belief stuff, which is connected to my physiology, which is all connected to the whole thing. So
fabulous. Thank you. It's been so lovely. Really enjoyed chatting with you, and I think our listeners are going to find this really, really fascinating, and lots and lots of nuggets to take away there. So thank you for sharing so generously, Jo.
Of course, thank you. I'd be lovely to chat to you too.
You are welcome. See you soon.